Most of you will have stumbled across the term emergence once or twice. Some may have a relatively clear idea of it, but I think the majority has not yet understood. Those who have followed me in our system talks so far know that I don't ask what concepts are or what they mean for real. I ask how they work for us, what they mean to us, what we want to observe with them, alone or together. So let us simply jump into the middle of the reference and understand that emergence has an active reproduction of another complexity. This becomes clearer when we look at this construct from perspective of evolution, life and survival. But first I want to give a very practical demonstrative example of emergence. Understand this language. Sound becomes meaning when I begin to discover linguistic structure in it. Maybe you saw the movie The 13th Warrior and remember the situation where the Arab listens to the Vikings at the campfire and crystallizes understandable words out of incomprehensible blubber. This is an emergence process. From one structure, noise, emerges another language that you can comprehend. Sometimes I think of evolution as a huge test to find out which programs are viable and which are not. I don't know if a fish wants to survive the way I imagine it, but I can see that fish try to escape predators, just like birds, gazelles, or rabbits. If I look at how life on Earth develops in this enormous and beautiful gravitational shaft, I notice that all life is based on other life. We walk across the Alps, remembering what is under our feet, products of organic life, sedimented limestone formed from fish skeletons and excrements and shells of mussels, algae, corals, and petrifications that may still contain organic residual matter. In short, fossils, lime, clay, sand, and gravel deposits. Our own evolution is deeply embedded in the evolution of our planet. We can understand life in terraforming terms. Life, and thus evolution, creates the conditions for further survival. Perhaps we are the first species on this planet that succeeds in destroying its own basis for life because it is equipped with emergent intelligence but does not yet know how to use it. However, I simply assume that fish wants to survive and that fish is an evolutionary project. You might have wondered how evolution came up with the strange idea of this fish swarm. Is this a program so that predatory fish simply have to swim in and bite hard once in order to enjoy a proper meal relatively effortlessly? Or is there more to it? That's why I find sardines or herrings fascinating. Evolution has provided the sardine with an iridescent skin, and many predatory fish come along with an interesting weakness or gap and chance for their victims. They cannot spot individual fish on iridescent surfaces. As soon as the single sardine connects with the swarm, it can no longer be isolated so easily for the predator. Not only is the swarm emergent here, in which collective waking behavior develops against predators, and in which currents are created that divide collectively when disturbed, swirl, reassemble, but also the swarm's iridescent surface, of which the isolated sardine neither is conscious of nor does it serve it. The complexity of life was actively reproduced differently along with beautifully iridescent skin and swarm behavior. A survival program was written, and it works, that was emergent to a fish that was not iridescent and swam for itself. One could assume that the marlin has developed its spear as a reaction to this because it can now irritate the swarm in its rhythm so that it has to reform itself, whereby individual animals become visible to the marlin. The swarm, which secures itself through the shimmering surface of the individual sardine, is emergent in its security to the individual sardine. On its own, the iridescence is of no use at all. Let's try another, somewhat more complex example to make it even clearer. I don't know how many of you know that, but Ralph and I call the era we entered a while ago reality emulation, to clearly separate this emergence from industrialization, which in turn was emergent to urbanization, like urbanization to sedentary life. By reality, we simply want to understand everything that each individual think is real, and emulation in our reference means reconstructing one system in another. For example, if you think about how you would like to show yourself tomorrow at an interview, you emulate yourself tomorrow, system 2, in your mind now, system 1. Or when Stone Age hunters have painted hunting pictures on the walls to pre-live tomorrow's hunt and train themselves to survive the hunt without injury, they emulated their reality of tomorrow on the walls of their cave today. We do not believe that digitization is the way to get a grip on what has suddenly happened in our world. The term is too small, too mechanical, too old. It in no way reflects the fact that we are talking about life, habits, ways of thinking, ways of acting, our togetherness, which makes globalization possible today, in which we can theoretically communicate with everyone else on this planet, and that a complexity has emerged in which communicative giant waves roll across the planet, which threaten us to tear us all from our feet in multi-causal networked polarizations. Digitization does not reflect our greatest power, chaos management. Exactly the power that still distinguishes us from machines. To call the era in which we live digitization would be to resign ourselves to the power of automation, robotization, AI, and big data. And yet it has become clear today that, and to what extent, we depend on our very own creativity and ability to regain our independence and question everything we have believed in so far. Many people recognize that the old path is a death trip, which we cannot overcome with back to nature alone. Otherwise, these concepts would have worked long ago. On the contrary, we have to set ourselves up in a completely new and forward-looking way and summon up the courage to doubt everything we believe in and to create constructive concepts for the future. Emergence means we need corresponding emergent models, science, tools, mindsets. We cannot solve tomorrow's problems with yesterday's or even the day before yesterday's thinking. Nor will we be able to recognize the challenges and opportunities in reality emulation if we do not understand that our universe has made a leap. We are actively experiencing how our lives suddenly made plop and changed fundamentally, and we are suddenly actively reproducing a different complexity. All we have to do is think about what's yet to come with robotization to realize that, for example, many of today's apprenticeships will be meaningless tomorrow. How absurd it is to still believe, against such a background, that we must fight unemployment instead of finally understanding it as an opportunity for creativity that has been set free. Algorithmization, digitization, networking, globalization have come together, and suddenly we are living in a completely new world. You can imagine such a thing as a chemical experiment. We pour various liquids into a glass, and the whole thing suddenly explodes as foam and spills over the floor. What is important in Emergent is to know that one overall structure suddenly becomes another. However, we cannot say exactly before or afterwards what has caused it. This causes a problem for many. They are trapped in purely causal context making and have not learned to think emergence, to think systemically. Those who do not learn this will not be able to adapt to the accelerated formation of emergent structures that we can expect on the internet, for example. This kind of outdated thinking is too slow. Anyone who tries to map emergent structures with causal structures in order to predict what happens next has already lost. This is quite comparable to how, at the beginning of another era, the previous emergent era, namely industrialization, the railroad arrived in the English villages and frightened the esteemed older ladies who had absolutely no idea what this meant for them and their survival. In this emergence at the time, these older ladies were not viable, and now they no longer exist. Emergence does not mean that something develops piecewise and comprehensively. It happens with a jolt, and it opens up completely new connective skill sets, just as those behaviors and thought patterns that functioned before can suddenly contribute nothing constructive any longer. With this new plop, not only do we humans emulate our reality in dreams, desires, expectations, art, science, and daily calculations of what may happen next. No. Suddenly, machines are involved in our world constructions. When we switch on the internet, we see avatars of people of which we not only don't know if the people behind them actually look like that, we don't even know anymore if they really are humans or bots. Wrapped up in our own survival complexities, we were and are constantly developing something new. We are the first species that can consciously deal with the active power of evolution. We can transform not only ourselves, but also our environments to produce emergent results. Results that we could neither predict nor really anticipate from below or before. Machines emulate other machines, and we emulate reality with them. As in the stock market, for example, where crises are priced in such a way that local reality can only reach us when everything is too late and states have to repair the damages so that the illusion continues to function. Billions of times in milliseconds, we feed new information into the system via machines and accelerate and multiply the acceleration and multiplication processes we have initiated. Many are so overwhelmed by today's complexities that they are frightened and try to jump back into an isolationist and nationalist universe. They will fail. Such universes only bring wars and despair. Emergence cannot be stuffed back into the box, nor it can be grasped piece by piece and comprehended by previous complexity. You have to jump. And such a leap requires self-education in the concepts and sciences that already reflect emergence. In this sense, I hope that my today's video has helped a little. Thank you very much for your attention. German articles on the topic of reality emulation are linked in the short description text below this video.